Unfortunately, there's no real easy answer here. The good rule of thumb is it should be considered, at least for performance-critical applications, because, as I said, clock speeds aren't going to go up much more, but the number of cores will. Applications that need to deal with large amounts of data in a short amount of time, latency-sensitive applications, in other words. Basically, applications where lots of repetitive things are done over and over and over and over again, the same repetitive thing, are also good examples. That's not a very good answer, but you wanted something. Applications which do a single task and then complete are not good candidates for parallelism. It may be a way to approach it the negative. If something starts and then finishes, you might be able to speed it up, but what's the point? It starts and it finishes. But things which run for a while are probably good candidates. So let's ask this question another way. What algorithms are easier to parallelize and which are harder? Parallelize. Algorithms which are easy to parallelize are things which involve large data sets, gobs of memory. You're rendering a high-definition screen or something like that. If you're doing mathematics, things where you have dense matrices, where you have lots of data elements, you can work on different parts of the matrix at the same time. And computations that deal with space, things like maps. If you're evaluating a map for an AI algorithm, for example, and you just try to determine the risk of a particular point on a map, those are good things for implementing in parallel. Situations where parallel implementations are harder or even not practical are cases where you have small data sets which don't take very long to process, even with a single thread of execution. Sparse matrices, which are just basically gigantic matrices which have only a few elements filled in, as their name implies. And then computations in time, basically situations where the current iteration depends on the previous one. Think of fluid dynamic calculations or things like that, where you need to know where you've been to figure out where you're going because you have to calculate the momentum, which requires knowing where you were at two different times with a certain mass. Or a computer game where you're doing physics. Basically the same example. You throw a ball. Is the ball going to arc? The ball has to arc somehow or something like that, and you need to figure out where it's been, where it's going, to figure out if you collided with anything between those two time points. Those are cases where it can be pretty hard to parallelize. There are ways to do it, but this is one of these cases where you shouldn't assume that just because you have a hammer, everything's a nail. It may not work.